pretty good.
Is the audio and visual looking pretty good at your end?
It is looking good on my end. This particular software does it streams at 720 but records at 1080. So
right.
So it records it, so you maintain your latency. Okay, so we're live as right now on YouTube as well. One day we'll figure out how to actually get Instagram and YouTube and everything else all at the same time. Someday that'll happen, but
that's right.
What can you do? So yeah, this is the inaugural live of the collective. How does that feel?
That feels pretty good. I like it. I noticed that you slid in a little tools for the toolbox up at the top there. A little bit of bonus branding.
You know what? The funny thing is, I didn't even realize that is the. It's set on my. Okay, it's not showing up on the live though.
Oh, is that
so
right?
It's only on the Riverside that you can see it, and that's just because I run it. My podcast is run through this, so on the live they're not going to see that portion of it. Just you and I. So that, I don't know, because I'm awesome, as is my podcast. And if you're actually, shameless plug, if you're looking for a podcast, Tools for the Toolbox, you can find it anywhere. Go listen. You can listen to this guy all over the place too. So the reason I wanted to talk today is, I had an epiphany at jiu-jitsu, which happens pretty regularly for me. And what I want to talk about, I'll get into what the epiphany was and how it all came to be in a minute, so I don't bore people with jiu-jitsu stories.
It's already boring. Seb Lavoie already said the golden rule is. In fact, the golden rule is this: hey, Chance, don't talk a lot about BJJ. I think that's the rule he said.
I think that's what he was saying. I am going to do what I want to do anyway.
See how well you pay attention to that lesson.
Exactly. So, terrain. How important terrain is. And not only how important terrain is, but how to see other aspects of life as terrain features, and how to utilize them, and how to engage them. So the question I wanted to ask you before we go into anything else is, what makes good ground? Like, what makes good terrain in your mind?
That's a good question. And so let me ask you a qualifying question.
Okay.
Am I on the offense or am I on the defense?
And see, that's where... That's exactly what I was going to get at, actually, was that it really depends.
No. Hang on a sec.
Okay.
Mine was a simple question back to you.
Okay. So, on the offense, what is good ground?
I'm on the offense. Well, obviously, I want to take the high ground.
Okay.
So, in BJJ, I understand where I would be on the mats if I was taking the high ground. Mm-hmm. And I want to take high ground that is defensible, has good cover, preferably concealment. But primarily my objective when I'm on the offense is to control the area from the high ground. And that's a very simplistic.
Okay.
Very simplistic.
What about on the defense?
On the defense, I want to be in a position that, again, is highly defensible, provides me, again, good concealment, more so interested in cover. I would prioritize cover more in a defensible position versus when I'm on the offensive, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And when I'm on the defensive, of course, I should have asked a more clarifying question, so a sub question, which would have been if I'm on a small team, such as a two-man team or a one-man team, such as deep reconnaissance as an example from military mindset, or if I'm in a larger team where I've got all kinds of supporting elements on my left and right flanks and in depth front and rear. So if I'm a single individual on the defense, then I want to make it in terrain that is extremely difficult to work through. So I'm planning myself in the middle of a swamp which gives me lots of ability to understand who's moving towards me. They're slowed down. They're easily readable. I've got lots of time to take care of the problem, or I've got lots of time to relocate. And of course, there could be lots of parallels in BJJ there.
Absolutely. And what we were actually talking about was, I won't bore everybody with the actual workings of what we were doing, but we were talking about deep half guard and the movements between the guards and the ability to transition from one to the other and why you would do so. And as we were talking, I realized that, each separate guard is a different set of terrain, and it is a different realm in which you have to determine whether you're attacking or whether you're defending. And while I was thinking about it, I started overlapping that into other things, such as mental health recovery, such as anytime you're dealing with trauma, anytime you're re-engaging your own memory, that each piece of those things is a different terrain set which calls for different tactics, and that you can't use the same tactics in the same terrainscape, right? You can't. Maneuver warfare works really well in big open spaces. It doesn't work well in maneuver warfare works pretty much everywhere, but it's a lot harder to do in mountainous terrain than it is in open plains. I'm just thinking like
I think maneuver warfare is the same regardless.
Warfare. Yeah, I should say mechanized warfare, not
even that
warfare.
is there's, in my opinion, there's very little difference between the two. It's just your footprint or your template that you're operating within is compressed or expanded, but the movement is still the movement. The movement is either micronized, like BJJ. If you're on a really busy mat, the mats are full with tons of partners. Your footprint is small. If you've got the mat to yourself, your footprint is big, but you get to decide on how you micronize your movements.
That's a good point, and you're right. That needs more clarification. I was thinking more in line of that. It's all at the root of it. It's about movement, and when you look at the macro, it's about movement, right? You need to be able to move, and you need to be able to make sure that the enemy doesn't move, right?
Yeah.
That's all it is. But I realized that the tactics change, and as you said, your footprint will either grow or will shrink, and that when I'm dealing with major depression, let's say, and I go downhill, I am going deep into the swamps of my own psyche and the difficulties therein lie. And the way in which I deal with that depression is different than I would deal with a bad day or a good day or a flashback or a insert issue here. And it's not so much the challenge is that it's not so much the challenge is doing what's necessary at the time. It's figuring out which tactic to use and when. At least that's where I was getting at with that. So in a mountainous terrain or in jungles or in swamps, the way in which you do things is going to change. The overall scope of how you're going to do it is still going to be the same. Like you're going to attempt to move, but the actual tactics that you use, the little things, change. And it's the recognition that's the actual difficult part rather than using them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And as you were putting that in place, the thing that I was considering was if you don't have an awareness or you don't have a sensitivity to what's going on in the real time, because let's take it back to a military application, or in parallel, also talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. when you face your partner or you face the problem in the military, when you go to do that tap bump or when you go to cross that start line with all of your equipment, you've got to know what you're engaging in. You've got to say to yourself, oh, I'm about to get into a 5-minute roll with this guy, or, oh, I'm crossing the start line, heading out into the terrain in front of me. So you first of all have to establish who you are in the real time and why you're there. And don't even go any further in the conversation than that for most people, nearly everyone. Because they haven't taken the moment, they haven't taken the present real-time moment to establish what's up.
Yeah.
What are they doing? Who are they in this moment? What disguise or what uniform or what capacity they're operating in the real time. And then if they can just like get with it and realize what's happening real time, then they can establish, and what am I doing in the real time? What is my purpose right now? And so if that purpose is on the BJJ mats or if that purpose is on the battlefield or whatever the case is, then you can start extrapolating or projecting forward into the things that I'm going to be bumping into as I head out on whatever direction it is that I'm heading out, whether it's mats or on into the terrain in front of me. But you can't do any of that. You can't establish what's next if you haven't established what's up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the actually, you and I were you had mentioned that the other night when we were chatting too, was people getting ahead of themselves. They just get into the game and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, I got this, and then they're they've gone too far, too deep, too far without any understanding of where they actually are.
It's extremely relevant, that point that you just made, because this morning, once again, going through my social media, and I should state that I follow a bunch of good people that I'm super impressed with. They're awesome. I love tracking everything they're doing. I love learning from them, and etc. So now that I've established that, I also follow some people that don't impress me through their actions and through their words and through their lack of actions and too many words. I follow them because I like to contextualize things. I like to create yardsticks within my own life to better understand who's doing it right, who's doing it poorly, who's always done it right, who was doing it poorly, and who is improving. The only way for me to understand how to do my game better is focus on in isolation, in a vacuum, and do my best. And then every once in a while, pop my head up, look around, and understand my left and right of arcs. And my left of arc might be, that dude's doing it terrible. And my right of arc might be, man, someday in my 9th life, I want to be that dude.
Yeah.
So I like to contextualize. So I follow people that are impressive and some that are less impressive. So this morning, once again, as is every morning, I'll see some things and I'll be like, what is up with that dude? Why doesn't he get it? Why is he living 4 years in the future?
Yeah.
When he's going to be whatever he thinks he's going to be. And today, he's yet to get out of his pajamas and jump on a chin-up bar. But he's already the chin-up bar master 4 years from now.
It's a challenge. It's actually interesting you do that, because I follow people on social media, that either don't believe what I believe, right? That are just on, and not many of them,
of course.
But I like to just see it every once in a while, because if all you ever know is what you want to see around you, that is all you will ever know, right? And that's
oh yeah, the echo chamber, man.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're awesome.
And dude, I remember when I was a teenager and I thought I was awesome, right? And I surrounded myself with people that thought that they were awesome, and we all just sat around thinking about how awesome we fucking were, and we weren't.
That's right.
At all.
Did you
Correction?
Just swear?
Yeah, I did. My apologies. It is It is harder. I've been trying. I really have been trying.
Try harder.
I'm going to try harder. My apologies, everyone. I should not have sworn.
He's doing better.
I'm doing better. Oh, yeah.
But he's going to do his best.
I'm still doing my best. Here we go. So, yeah, we always thought we were awesome. And at no point did we ever think that there was anything more. Until I realized, man, there's a lot more. And there's more that I can do, and that I can be more awesome. So let's go be more awesome. And I tried to. Still do. Every day, wake up.
But in your defense... And in every teenager's defense, myself included, it was a small world.
Yeah.
And the inspiration around me was small. Mm-hmm. And so as I got older, out into the bigger world around me, things got a lot, the landscape got wider, and the ability to not only be exposed to, but also have close relationships with people who are like mind-blowingly inspiring. Mm-hmm. That's when my life started changing. So as a teenager, I just kind of thought, whatever, like most teenagers, good to go.
Yeah.
But it's not until you start getting around people who are literally good to go that you understand, wow, I kind of sucked. Mm-hmm. And so it's all perspective based on contextualizing it against what's around you. And that's why, again, I follow a bunch of awesome people, and I also follow some people who kind of suck.
Yep.
And my hope is that those people who kind of suck will shake their heads and get with the program. We'll see.
Yep. I always think it's a good idea to push the boundaries just a little bit on whatever it is. Right. I'm trying to remember what it was. I saw something on social media once. I was scrolling through Reels or whatever, and I was listening to something, and I was like, "What? No, that's not right at all." But I was like, "Wait, no. That's that person's opinion, and if it bothers me, then there's a reason that it bothers me, and I need to explore that so that I can, have a better control of myself." But man, social media is great for that, because you get to control how much you're pushing yourself, if you want to push yourself in that degree, and also you get to control what's on your feed. I've had conversations with people that they're all like, "Oh yeah, I scroll through Instagram and it's all just vitriol and it's all just bad and people doing blah 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 blah. It's all fake." And I'm like, "Well, that's what you're looking at."
Right, you created that universe.
Yeah, my feed is not full. It's full of awesome, inspiring people that are doing awesome, inspiring things. So that I wake up and I'm like, man, I got work to do. All right, and off I go. But I think that's the key thing. But that's also recognizing where you're at, right?
Yeah, that's right.
5-6 years ago, if I was trying to do that, nope. I was still in the midst of me trying to figure out where I was at to begin with. And to recognize, 5 years ago, that would have been 2018. So I was getting better, but I wasn't where I am, right? And that's, again, part of recognizing where you are, part of recognizing where you have the ability to, where you actually have the ability to question yourself.
So what changed?
Well, initially it was, I walked into the room one day. My son was, I think, 2, maybe. And I walked into the room, and out of nowhere, he flinched. Just me walking in the room. And that told me that I was not doing something correctly. And it wasn't I scared him.
So that was a recognition.
Yeah.
That wasn't change.
No,
that was just a recognition.
The change
so what
started.
Changed?
I was not where I wanted to be. That's what changed. My actual, the definition of what I wanted changed.
So then let me rephrase the question. What did you change?
I changed how I looked at myself. And everything else came after that.
So build on that.
The change in myself the way I stopped looking at myself was that I was good to go. It's funny.
Yes.
There's been plateaus, I guess, in my life that, you hit and you're like, yeah, I'm good to go.
Right.
Until you hit a wall and then you go, oh, wait, I'm not good to go anymore. And then I start.
So how did you how were you calibrating against that? Because obviously at one point you were like, oh yeah, I'm a superstar, and you weren't. And so how did you learn that?
By looking around. As you said, you pop your head up, you start looking around, you're like, oh man, I'm not doing it right. And that was, and I've continually done that since that day, where I've gone like, I pop my head up, I look around, I'm like, I do that more often, and I do it basically every day now. I wake up and
I see you doing that. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's, I see you on the regular, on the daily, improving day by day for sure. And I'm not saying that in a weird condescending manner. I mean, I pay attention. I pay attention to how guys are improving, guys that I follow closely, how they're leveling up on a more regular basis, and I've seen you do it. And it's not like you're some sort of singular pet project that I'm observing through an electron microscope. I mean, I'm doing this all the time with every single person that I engage with. It's the coach in me. I can't separate my, not just my instinct, but my capacity to coach. It's just too driven into me for too many, decades. So I am always looking at a person, and then I'm looking at as a person that is someone that I'm coaching. Yep. I can't help it.
Yep. No, it makes sense. And it's interesting because even in jiu-jitsu and previous martial arts that I've done, I like to compete, but I'm not a competitor, if you know what I mean, right? Like I'm not trying to get out there and win all the time, but I want to see where I'm at. And so I will go into a competition every once in a while, usually at a belt level, and just be like, am I where I should be? Yes, no. Do I have places to work on? Do I not? Cool. And then I'm okay with it. And then we'll wait till the next belt level, and then I'll do another tournament just to see again where I'm at, because you can't know where you're going until you know where you are. And I know it sounds kind of trope, but it is 100% true. If you don't know where you are, and what's the first thing in one of the first things they teach you in when you're doing land nav, right? You got to know where you are. If you don't know where you are, that map is worthless. It's not going to help you.
I'll build on that a little bit because it's a good example to build off of. Not that the BJJ wasn't, we could have built off of that all day long. But now that we're on this particular map and compass scenario.
You have a little bit of experience.
I do. I used to be reasonably handy.
Reasonably good. Yeah.
It's less about the details of map and compass. It's more about the example that you just stated. So right back to the square root of, or the ground zero of map and compass, and that is establish where you're at. And so, listen, I've made that mistake in the past where I've tried to establish where I'm at, but I'm on timelines. And I don't have the luxury of carefully establishing where I am. I don't have the time to triangulate. I've barely got the time to look at the stars. It's more of a move now instinct, because I just have so much in front of me that I've got to crush. And so it's a little bit of instinct. It's a little bit of, I was on this path, and this path is getting me to the point where I think I'm going to generally end up where I need to be. And then I'll refine it at the back end. But for now, I don't have the luxury of doing a three-way triangulation. So I just get on with it. But that works for me. Because I've got like a freaking boatload of skills that allow me to instinctually transporter beam myself to where I need to be. But that takes skills, and that takes experience. That takes a long time to be able to do that. We'll call it as a pathfinder. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
But if you're starting out with the idea of establishing where you are right now, some people never move beyond that. And let me give you an example. So I'm treating that person as, we'll call them a noob, a navigating noob. So what I've seen, my AI camera was freaking out because I gave it a little, and I don't think it likes that. I think that means something else. Let me get it back on
Finger
track
quotes.
here.
Oh,
I failed to enter the whiteboard mode. Yeah, I'm not interested in the whiteboard mode. So what I was going to say is some people, they're starting off as navigation noobs, and they have barely even established where they are right now.
Yep.
And because they don't have any other skill sets, they stay where they're at right now. And this is what I see on social media. In fact, this is precisely what I saw this morning. The same handful of guys that I track are saying the exact same thing this morning as they said yesterday, as they said the day before, as they said last month, as they said last year. And it goes like this, and I'm going to paraphrase, but it's words to the effect of, today is an inspiring day where I'm going to inspire myself and I'm going to inspire others. And then in brackets, see you tomorrow, because I'm going to use the exact same quote from a different dude who is inspiring me to say the same thing tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And it's a variety of Greek and it's a variety of old schooly philosophers, or it's a variety of, I don't know if it's coming from Facebook or where it's coming from, but it's the same quotes that get passed around that day from each guy to each guy. And he reposts that same quote that inspired another guy who has got the map in front of him, a compass in the hand, and is not willing to take one pace forward against trying to navigate ahead, because they're so comfortable standing in the same spot that they're going to be standing in 24 hours from now with another, what I consider to be pablum for the mind, that silver spoon fed, wow, I'm super comfortable here not moving. I'm just going to keep staring at this map and I'm not going to navigate ahead. Yep. Day after day after day, I see the same soothing, no pressure on me quotes, because I don't have to change, because someone said it's tough to be me. It's difficult to change. Change is hard. So I think I'll just hang out here with my map and compass for another 24 hours. That's what I see every day from guys that I just wish would get with the program and take a step across the start line.
That's, camp is comfy.
It is.
Camp is real comfy. If you get into a position where you can just hang out and not have to worry about, the fact that there are other things moving. But not even just, in the wild, or you're talking about predators or anything like that, but in everyday life. Time is coming, right? And it's coming for you.
For sure.
And
it is the enemy.
It is the enemy, and it will never stop. And you will eventually lose to time.
That enemy never goes away. But here's another thing to add a little bit more nuance to the kind of metaphorical situation that we're now discussing. And that is, there's a guy with a map and compass in his hand who'll be there in the same position 24 hours from now. And he's lost 24 hours of his life to stand in the same position and not improve any further, not go ahead and recon.
Yep.
For two reasons, it's more problematic. Beyond you're dying. Yeah. And you'll be 24 hours deader 24 hours from now, and you accomplish nothing in that moment. There's two other problems. One is, as you stand there in camp, I better not use that symbol in case I go to whiteboard mode. In camp, if you're standing there in camp with your map and compass, you haven't proceeded forward across the wire to do any reconnaissance on behalf of your team. So you're already letting down your team just by standing there being super comfortable, not challenging yourself. And the second part is, not only are you letting down your team, but standing there passively allows your camp to be surrounded. by more problems, by other enemies other than time. And so the enemies always show up, first of all, now they're probing and you barely see them. And they're at a long distance, taking little cracks at you from 1,000 meters away.
Yep.
And you're thinking to yourself, wow, you know, that missed me, as you stand there with your map and compass. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not doing anything about it, if you're not running a counter program like default aggressive, moving across the wire to start reconning them and start shutting down their program, we'll call them the enemies. Well, now you're buying into your own, allowing it all to backslide.
Yep.
You become a willing victim due to your passive nature, not facing up to the idea of just take one step across the line, across the wire. Get engaged in changing it all.
Advance, right? Just advance. That's, you know, one of the things I've had a few people message me and, you know, I have a really hard time getting, you know, started. I have a really hard time getting off the ground. I'm like, just that's 1 foot, man. Look down, left. Okay, cool. Right. And just, if it has to be that simple, make it that simple, but just start, because otherwise you're literally just sitting there. And as you said, the enemies will overtake you. And in a
100%.
Great BJJ thing, if you don't start establishing grips right away, the other person is going to establish theirs, and in which case now you're in defensive mode and you have to blah, blah, blah.
It starts even before that.
Yeah.
So the moment that we tap and bump on the BJJ mats, one of us gets to decide how it's all going to play out.
Yep.
And guess what? If I'm in a default aggressive mode, I'm now standing over top of you. Because I've either thrown you or I've tripped you or whatever I've done. You're now on your ass on the mat. And as I stand over you in that structure, about to do whatever I'm going to do, I've taken the high ground.
Yep.
I'm now in default aggressive mode. I have the advantage.
Yeah.
And
you're attacking downhill.
I'm attacking downhill. I have gravity. I have leverage. I have blah, blah, blah. I've got all of the things. Yep. I now have a superior position. And because I have the superior position, it is now for me to decide what I want to do with it. Whereas you only have one choice. You have to defend in order to improve your position to then go on your own offensive, which can happen in a millisecond through micronized movements with an advanced player who understands nuance.
Yeah.
But that ain't a white belt newbie.
No.
If I put you on your arse and I'm over top of you in default aggressive, you're going to get your ass kicked. That's it. That's all.
Yeah.
And so the outcome of those positions is based on how long you've been in the game, but more importantly, how long you've been paying attention to the game. And so to take that back to the individual who hasn't crossed the start line, well, they don't even know how passively defensive they are right now, as they're surrounded by all of those enemies called, all of the usual enemies that work on the mind.
Yep. It's interesting too, because it applies, and this is why I had this little epiphany when we were talking about the different guards and the different terrains and the different thought patterns. That if I always tell the new white belts when they're there, it's just like, survive. That just work on survival right now, because you're not going to tap anybody out. And the funny thing is when you first, even before you begin, those people that are out there that have never done BJJ, that have never gotten on the mats, who have never actually, seen what it can do, a lot of them think they're awesome. Again, we're back to this, right? They're like, oh yeah, that wouldn't happen. It's different if there's this, it's different if there's that, whatever. I'm a big guy, I'm super strong, all these things. As we can attest to, it
doesn't work like that.
You need to actually be there. You need to be training, and it works for everything. It works for you want to be a more stoic person. You need to practice stoicism. If you want to be a Awesome. You know, want to be a fighter? Okay. Practice every friggin' day. It's one of those things that it doesn't matter what you do. You just have to do it because it's not going to come to you.
Well, do you know what isn't practice? Waiting for the next 24-hour cycle to come around so you can push up on your Instagram feed another 4 quotes this morning that give you slack.
Yeah. That's why I always say grace, not slack. It's about, you know, there are days that are, okay, you know, shit happen. Man.
Dude, you're killing us. You're killing all the kids that are listening to this.
You know what? You're right.
Your own sons,
my apologies.
perhaps.
Yep. Perhaps, actually, probably more.
Sometime in the future.
Right. Yep.
After we're dead.
Yeah. When bad things happen, right? You cannot control everything that happens around you. You can only control yourself. So when things happen and the day goes poorly, okay, cool, carry on. That's the grace portion of it. You know, you were saying you couldn't go out for a ride yesterday. Okay, I can't go for a ride yesterday. Dang. Going on a ride for a day.
It was a non-factor.
Yeah.
Because I was still productive.
Yep.
I was still default aggressive.
Yep.
And it wasn't at my usual pace of putting out 1,000% in the sense of created or outcome workload.
Yep.
But I was still default aggressive, getting after it in a variety of different ways. It's just that my outcomes weren't as big as they normally would because I just didn't have the juice to put out that sort of outcome. But I was still in the game.
Yep.
And I was still putting out my best effort. It's just that I felt not the awesome while I was doing it, but I still got after it.
And that's the grace portion of it, is that you're still working, right? I had an issue. I struggled with this quite a bit when I was first dealing with my own trauma and dealing with my own stuff, was the fact that I would have a really bad day. And then I would let that ruin, or let me rephrase, I would have a really bad 20 minutes. And then I would let that ruin the rest of my day. Or I should say, actually, even more accurately, I ruined the rest of my day because I had a bad 20 minutes.
You did, and so let's turn that into words. How did that happen?
I gave myself slack.
You got lazy.
I got lazy, and I got angry, and I said, this isn't going to work. I got fearful of even attempting the next step because I had anxiety over the reaction from a previous incident, rather than looking at that next step and being either more careful or adjusting or seeing where I'm at. Do I need to just stop and figure out where I am at that point? Again, that's where
is fine. It's fine to be annoyed in a large group with really shrill voices, all catching up because they haven't seen each other for a year, and it just sizzles through my brain. I don't want to be there.
Yep.
But I bite down on my mouthpiece, and I use that classic case of exposure to things that really irritate me. Mm-hmm. And I try to use that exposure to dial down my irritation by the exposure process. I don't want to be around that shrill, squealing sort of group of people who are, just not my group, perhaps.
Yep.
It's not where I want to be. But I'll absorb it as long as I can in order to almost desensitize myself to the really super annoying, shrill voices that are chirping at each other. It's something that requires work. Or the alternative is you keep telling yourself, I can't do it. It's impossible. I'm going to go look for another soothing quote that makes me feel good about doing absolutely nothing.
And that's slack. That is 100% slack.
It's so slack.
Yeah.
It is. It's unacceptably slack. And And for, again, the three reasons. One is you should be better than that. We all are. And you've just bought into your own dialogue of being lazy. So that's that. The second thing is you got to get across the wire and start reconning on behalf of your team, because now you're letting down the team by standing there being totally slack. And the third thing is not only are you letting down your team and yourself, but now the enemy's creeping up on the camp. All of those mental enemies, all of those, by the way, physical enemies of you not addressing the stressors in your life, the stressors that are creating free radicals, the stressors that are creating foggy thinking, that blah, 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 all of the things that only continue to get worse the longer that you spoon the pablum into your brain that makes you believe that the quote is enabling you to do absolutely zero today. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And it's funny because I put a lot of those quotes out too. And I really like sharing them because they actually mean a lot to me. But I'm enacting them, or at least I'm attempting to enact them as best as I can.
Great point. Yeah. Now, here's the important part. You know they mean something to you because you're in your own head. Mm-hmm. And as you're reading that and putting it up on the IG, you're thinking to yourself, well, that inspires me because I remember that time where blah, blah, blah. And you've got that whole inner dialogue where it all makes sense. You push it up. Does it make sense to me? I don't know. Depends on which quote you put up. It makes sense to me when I tie the quote to you, the individual Chance, and I have enough understanding that I can see how you're applying that within your life because I see you leveling up. Mm-hmm. But what would be nice, and this is directed at you directly, it's also directed at everyone else who may be listening to this, who puts up those kind of quotes. How about this? Instead of constantly reposting these same quotes that are pablum of the brain, attach your own personal thoughts to it in the sense of put up the quote and say, there was a time when I didn't understand that ... Or you could say something along the lines of, this is what this means to me. Or ... How about, this is how I apply the XYZ. Because until then, it's just pablum being passed around the internet without any contextualization on how it helps you. Because I know when you send it to me, I'll read it and I'll think, whatever.
Yeah. Interesting. That's a great point. Because you're right. It does mean something to me, but you don't know what that is. And no one else does.
That's right. And I can read that. I can read those things. And if I've got the time, I can think to myself, okay, I see what Chance is doing here. I see how that's relevant to him. That makes sense. Good for him. But then if I actually want to gain anything from that, then I've got to go further and think, well, what does this quote mean to me? And now I'm spending time reading your quote that means something to you that I'm trying to interpret to make something, you know, it would be helpful. Taking a mentorship role in that quote and stating something that's helpful for others.
Indeed. Perhaps a tool for said toolbox.
For sure. And like there is so many opportunities to actively improve ourselves, the little team around us, and counter all of the enemies that are creeping up on that camp. There's so many tools to be able to do it. But all of the tools in the world mean nothing if a person is engaged in it passively.
Yeah.
This quote that we're talking about right now is the example. The only way that quote becomes of any value is if you use it actively, rather than everyone passing around the same goofy quote today, everyone patting each other on the back. You did the work. You pushed up a quote.
I saw a great, I guess you'd qualify it as a meme. I'm not sure, but there was something floating around on Facebook many years ago, and it was like, how much of an activist would you be if social media didn't exist? And I think that illustrates the point in that, yeah, it's all well and good to share, it's all well and good to post stuff, and it's all well and good to, highlight things on social media. What are you actually doing?
Yeah.
Where are you actually involved? Because if you're not physically doing anything, nothing is physically changing.
Agreed.
And, there's a lot of keyboard warriors out there. There's a lot of, there's a lot of people that want to hide behind the screen. And I actually had a little point on this during a podcast, I can't remember when, but was that there's an anonymity to this, right?
For sure.
Not right now because we're live, but
yeah.
Even afterwards, I could delete it.
For sure.
Right? And then it's gone, unless somebody else recorded it. But that engages a slight anonymity, a slight comfort zone. That's why the lives are a little bit more outside of the box, right? Instead of a recording. That's why they're more authentic. They're more personal, because I've already made 2 mistakes and many more during this conversation. I didn't start it on time. I've been swearing so far. There's lots of things that I'm going to do better.
For sure. You're right.
Yeah.
But let me throw this at you, and I'm curious about your opinion. I might have it wrong. I have a lot of things wrong, so I might be wrong on this. But I see no distinction between a live chat and a recorded chat. Or and it doesn't even have to be a chat with another person. I'm talking about when I started doing the lives to the internet, didn't matter to me, because those are the things that I would have said if it was just a recorded thing, because I don't edit. I just don't use editing software. I don't use a script. I don't use a teleprompter. I own what I say. And sometimes I say dumb stuff, but it would be the same stuff that I say in a live as I would in a recorded, because these are my authentic thoughts that I'm poorly trying to explain to whoever's listening. And I make no distinction between live and recorded, because I'm just being me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. My opinion is, from what I've seen, is that podcasting and video chats and being able to actually physically see somebody, it makes it more authentic.
For sure.
Just immediately, right? And I guess really, I think for some, and I know when I first started, there was a little safety blanket in that fact that I could delete whatever it is. So for a recorded chat, I could say whatever I wanted, and then if I didn't like it, I'd get rid of it. Right? And there's that little bit of a cozy blanket to it of like, I can say whatever I want and then not have anybody hear it. Over time, I realized that I wasn't doing any editing anyway. And for the podcast, it sounded better without editing, because the inflection and the continuation of words, and there's more flow to the actual conversation, which I tried to maintain. But that forced me to work harder on my speech and how to maintain a conversation and how to ask questions without them sounding like hard-edged questions, and how to, engage the camera a little bit more. And again, level up that little bit, try to make it a little bit better. Every episode I want to make a little bit better, whether that's in, the general conversation, whether that's the audio, whether that's the video, whether that's the resolution, whatever, all that stuff. But for guests of mine, there have been a few that, could you pull this one little section out? I'm not supposed to talk about that. And I'd be like, sure. Right. There's that little bit of safety in that realm, because it's digital, that you can play with it in the recording, whereas in live you can't. Until after the fact, obviously. But that little bit of safety in my mind, I have to leave that behind after a while, right?
For sure.
Because to be authentic, it has to be authentic. It has to be true to the moment within the moment, as we were saying the other day.
For sure. I feel like that's where a lot of social media has gone wrong. It's too contrived. It's too manufactured. It's too...
the masterclass.
The masterclass, man. It's too focused on on the look rather than on the substance of the matter. It's too focused on creating an image that is non-real. Yeah. And I find it difficult to resonate with someone who, as I watch, I watch a lot of YouTube videos to better understand the world around me, and I struggle to watch even good content that I can see 100 edits through a 3-minute long video. It's not authentic.
Yeah.
And I understand that they're trying to present perhaps the highest level of information so that it's smooth and seamless and blah, 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 whatever. But that's the rare exception where the focus is actually on presenting for the other individual. I find that 9 times out of 10 or 99% of the time, the focus is not on the delivery. The focus is on how the person looks, how they come across, how they're perceived by the audience. Like, I don't want to offend the audience. I just want the audience to get an authentic moment, which is pretty rare nowadays.
It really is. And, as you were talking, it reminded me, there's an old saying, I don't know where it came from. I might have just been told this many years ago, was no combat-ready unit will ever pass inspection, and no inspection-ready unit would ever pass combat.
That's a great comment.
And it is 100% true, because if you're focused on the look of something, that is completely different than the substance of what it is you're actually trying to do. Right? You cannot take the silent drill team and throw them into combat. Now, they might be great soldiers, but what they're working on, what they've been practicing, is for show. Right? It's to show skill and determination, all these things. But the casual observer is not seeing that. They're seeing, awesome drill and good work and all that stuff. But when you actually, combat is not like that in any way, shape, or form. And combat-ready units are usually, they're usually dirty, they're usually grungy, their weapons are immaculate, their gear is immaculate, but they're in the world.
That's right. And they've got attitude.
And they got, exactly, yeah.
As they should.
Yeah.
Because it's required.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I spoke about this not very well. I really didn't put my point across very well. But it was a discussion on how the focus back in the day was wrong. It was about getting more boot polish. And it was about putting the budget into the band, into music, rather than more combat effective. Here's your knife, fork, and spoon kit. You're good to go. Now get on the parade square and start practicing your drill. It was all kinds of wrong, but that was poor leadership, focused on the wrong things. But you can scale that way down to the individual, where the individual has to understand, well, why am I here? Why am I in uniform? Why do I have combat boots on? They're not called boots. They're called combat boots. I'm not going to focus on polishing my combat boots. I'm going to focus on combat.
It always blew me away.
Always blew me away.
Yeah. And the funny thing is...
But I had to play the game.
Yeah.
Because that was the game in front of me. And I understood at a reasonably early point, once it was explained to me in no uncertain terms, that in order to be better, I had to do my best. And that meant be my best in everything. So the part of the game was that goofy, parade square drill nonsense, which I never liked. But I tried to become a subject matter expert in it because that was the task in front of me. And then all of a sudden I was wearing a red sash. Now I'm a senior NCO and now I'm teaching it and blah, blah, blah. And I'm holding that high standard. And now I'm the guy with a pay stick pointing it at some young fella's face and barking at him, telling him to get his act together. Whereas it's not my thing.
Yeah.
Never cared for it. I'd like to throw it all in the dumpster and get on with having combat skills. Bigger, better, faster, stronger. But leadership back in the day, in absence of knowing how to do those things, focused on how to do the parade square things.
It was the same in my day.
Sucked, of course.
It didn't actually change, unfortunately. And, you know, the funny thing is that I like drill. I actually really enjoy it. I love the precision of it. But I also recognize that drill it's for show. That's all it is. It's for show. It is to show other people the level of determination or skill or, because I mean, I'm sure you've seen the Marine Corps silent drill team.
Mm-hmm.
They're immaculate, right? Mm-hmm. Or the changing of the guard in front of Buckingham Palace, or
it is for show.
Like it is for show,
but it also teaches the individual
100%
precision, discipline, focus, how to work as a team,
yep.
etc. And those are all
detail,
fantastic
all
things.
Yep.
Amazing. But by the way, they can also be done out in the field.
Absolutely. And it needs to be done in the field, and you need to be able to make the attachment to go, this is why, like in basic training and SQ and your trades course and stuff like that, drill is harped on and your inspections are harped on and making sure everything's clean is harped on, all that stuff. Great. It should be there. But it should be slowly stretched out to go, okay, look, now bring all this out to the field. Now you need, the reason why you polish your boots is so that they don't get destroyed when you're out in the field. The reason why your stuff is clean is so that animals don't come and take it while you're sleeping, or you're getting covered in ants while you're in position. Those threads need to be brought forward. And unfortunately, in my day, they weren't unless you made the connection yourself. And once you made the connection yourself,
it wasn't higher order thinking.
Yeah,
it was simplistic thinking that was focused on simplistic tasks like take the platoon and do drill for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so where's the growth in that? The direction is go do drill because we can't be out in the field and we've got nothing else for you to do. And so go do drill.
Yeah.
There's no benefit
silly.
In it.
No, it's silly. And again, if you're going to do drill it's got to be for a reason. And like, it has to be for one of my biggest issues that I had when I was really bitter before I got out was the fact that the drill was sloppy, and I thought all over the place. It's not that hard to throw a salute up, right? This is not that difficult of a standard to maintain. It's not. And I always told when I was teaching, I taught a officer phase 2 course at one point before I got out, and I told them, like, make your drill sharp, because that's the first thing the boys are going to see. When you are a new lieutenant brought to a unit, they're going to bring you out in front on parade. And if you come up and you go like this, everyone's going to think that you are garbage.
Well, there's more to it than that. They'll think that, and then what else do they think?
Yeah. Well, after that...
What do they think beyond that?
Well,
other than that guy's a bag of hammers.
Yeah. And if they don't think anything, that's bad.
Right.
If they think worse, that's bad, right? You want the first interaction with your troops to be, man, that was a sharp salute. They're just like, okay, he switched on. He knows at least he's switched on in that regard, and that will lead the bias towards being switched on. If you show up and you're not switched on, regardless of how switched on you are in the field, that game is there for a reason.
That's right. And
so, yeah, I think it applies to what everything we've been talking to is that in that you need to show up for yourself, but then show up for the team, and then show up for the community around you. And if you just keep showing up to get better, then everyone around you gets better.
Yeah, because for sure.
They see you getting better, and they're like, man, I want to be better too.
So let's tie it all together. And I'm going to use you again as the example. Back in the day, 5 years ago, however many years ago, whatever it was, when you were just spooning that pablum into your lazy brain and giving yourself 100% slack, because
lots of pats on the back. I'm okay
because the Doritos are going to be there tomorrow.
Yep.
And so that was you, and you couldn't get yourself out of it perhaps at some point because you were too freaking lazy to do it or whatever it was. So someone had to maybe kick your ass, either you or an external force. And what I'm seeing out there right now is a lot of yous with 100% slack and not trying to get too further ahead. I'm talking about you back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And no one's holding them accountable. And they're definitely not holding themselves accountable. And so where's the sweet spot? I mean, like, I don't want to have to start barking at a guy and saying, dude, shake your freaking head. Because, you know, that can be tough on a guy if he's not ready for it.
Yeah.
So what's the sweet spot?
That is a very good question, because I think it changes for everybody, and it changes with their experience and what they need to hear at that particular time. Because sometimes what somebody needs to hear is silence. Sometimes what they need to hear is somebody barking at them. Sometimes what they need to hear is, you know, calm, collected, this is the way. And it changes as time goes, and the different people and different scenarios and what they're in. And I think that the best thing that we can do in this particular time period, and I think it's exactly what we're doing. We're talking about it. We're making it out in the open, instead of allowing for other interpretations to our words. These are our words. These are our deeds. Now it's up to you.
Well, I'm trying to be super clear, direct, concise, and particular on this point, in the sense of, I just feel, based on the pablum quotes that I read every day from the same guys not making any forward progress, it's not only academically lazy, it's intellectually lazy, it's spiritually lazy, it's physiologically lazy, and they know it. I know it. We all know it. But everyone lets it happen because don't want to rock that boat.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
And it's not that I want to put everyone on blast, but I kind of want to put everyone on blast a little bit, in the sense of unnecessary. All of this pablum spooning is unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. And I was just thinking about this, was that the quotes that I saw on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff, all the things that I was reading, it got me to a point where I was like, I need to know more. Right? Because you can read quotes by Seneca, and you can read quotes by Marcus Aurelius, and you can read quotes by all the philosophers from back in the day.
Oh, it's soothing.
That's great. Yeah, it feels great.
Yeah, you nod your head. Cool. Oh, yeah, I'm that.
Oh, yeah.
I do
totally.
that.
Yeah, 100%.
That's me. I'm going to do that.
But I had never read Meditations.
Right.
I had never read any of the actual books or gotten any of the context surrounding it.
Right.
And I said, okay, wait, no. I cool. These are great quotes. These are good information. How does it actually apply? And then I went and I read Meditations, and I read Musashi, and I read, you know, the Book of Five Rings, and I started actually working on the problem, saying, how do I make this apply? How do I actually apply this to my life? Because, you know, it's all well and good to say that I'm in control of my own emotions. Okay, great. How have you tested that lately? How have you pushed yourself in a direction that says, I am in control of my own emotions? How many times have you actually practiced stoicism, put yourself in a very bad position, or put yourself in a semi-bad position, and actually work the problem? And that's what it made me start doing that. And you're right in the fact that now, what I should be doing, instead of just sharing those quotes with no context, I should be sharing the quotes and the context and how I engaged it throughout.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's happening now.
Good man. Yeah. And I'd love to see it happen more. Not just from you, of course. Because, look, let's not get it twisted. I think, you know, it's not that I'm going to say you're good to go, because none of us really are. But, I mean, dude, it's not that you need to do what we're discussing right now. But in a sense, you do need to do it, because it's not about you.
right.
with your map and compass anymore, standing on the noob line of non-action, because that boat has sailed. That's back in the day. You've already crossed the wire a bunch of times doing your reconnaissance. You've already started understanding the enemies that are encircling the camp. So you've evolved beyond that point of every 24-hour cycle, you're still standing in the same spot with non-action. Mm-hmm. But you've served yourself well. Now it's time to not only serve yourself well with pushing the quote up and what you've got to serve everyone around you, everyone else standing in the camp. And by the way, those other people who are across the wire on a fairly regular basis, as they're coming back into camp, it's nice to see a guy going out of camp.
Yeah. High five on the way through the door.
Yeah, bro.
All right. Gotcha.
Yeah. And by the way, you know what else happens? As you're going out and they're coming in, not only is it a, how was that? You give them the nod. They can look at you and say, watch out for, or 6 hours ago, or keep your eye on.
Yeah.
There's a quick information passage. So it's, you're going out, they're coming in, you get the nod, instant transfer of intel, and you get on with executing against the problem. Mm-hmm. I don't see that happening often enough.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. It's, I had a thought and then it disappeared on me. The key, I think, at least for me, in the next little while, because you're right, I don't actually need to do anything. Oh, there's my point. Is the fact, what I usually tell people when they, I get a lot of, I really want to be better. I want to be this. I want to do this thing. I want to. And I'm like, okay, well, here are your options. You can do this. You can do that. You can do those things. Like, here's the door. I can't make anyone walk through the door. As much as I would love to say, okay, you now will go do that and have them go do it. That's not up to me. All I can do is just show them what I have done, give them options for other things that I have heard of or my friends have done, and I have to let them go. But, as you were just pointing out, which I think is a great addendum to that, is you have to give them a little heads up, right? I've been down this door. It will get you where you need to go, but there are monsters in the hallway.
Here's what I saw.
Yeah, and these are the things these are the places that I got tripped up. These are the places that took me a long time to get through. These are my spots, my canalizing grounds, where my, it's a, we do this all the time in the engineers, and I didn't even really think about it. But when you're doing a bridge recce, it's basically any type of recce, really. You have to then brief it to the commander and be like, "Here's my recce. This is what I learned. Pass it on." And then they pass it down to the troops, and the troops do their thingies. But that passage of information has to happen after you're done the recce. We were talking about this the other day, was that you can't start your recce and then turn around and be like, okay, everybody, I know what we're doing, right?
Here's what I see happening out there a fair bit is I'm thinking about doing a recce, but before I start it, I'm going to tell y'all how it went.
Yeah. You're looking at the ground from... Yeah, go ahead.
And to use the metaphorical situation that you framed as in, I'm going to show you the door. You can step through that door. I've stepped through that door. Here's what I see happening to tie it back to what we've been discussing. Every day I step through that door. And at the end of the day, I walk back through the door and I look at the guy who's still standing at the door and hasn't touched the doorknob yet.
Yep.
Every single day, I see the same guys standing, looking at the doorknob, called a quote that makes them feel good about themselves.
Yep.
And every day I'm stepping back through that door and I'll look at them and say, hey, man, you should try it. Or, hey, XYZ, or this is what I saw. This is how you're going to improve, blah, blah, blah. I say it on the regular.
Yep.
But the same guys are still standing looking at that quote doorknob.
And not only that, but like thinking, hey, yeah, good old pats on the back. Like
not only thinking that they're good to go with the pats on the back, now they're a life coach.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole nother ball of wax. I think we could probably save for another chat. Getting into
for sure. But what it does is it establishes, or it shines a light on the stages of I was going to say disillusionment, but distorted thinking of believing that as they're staring at that doorknob, somehow they understand how the entire game works, and now they're willing to be a leader on how it all works.
Right.
But they've never walked through the door. And so that disconnect of where you are and who you are and how you relate to the world around you and what you have and what you need to work on and blah, blah, blah. These are all poorly established because the individual hasn't done the work. They haven't considered their gaps, their weaknesses, the areas that they have to get to work on, because their ego has told them that I'm not going to face any of this. I'm just going to keep pumping myself up. I'm just going to keep telling myself that I'm good to go. Mm-hmm. Instead of facing the hard task of, I am definitely not good to go. And I definitely need to figure out how to reach out and grab that doorknob.
Yeah. And that's one of the hardest parts, is just that initial recognition of I am not good to go. Right. And that's one of the hardest parts. But a lot of times you get stuck in that negative feedback cycle, right? I'm going to reach for it. Nah, I'm not good to go enough yet. Or, the people, where you hear...
Yeah, but changing that dialogue.
Yeah.
I mean, changing that dialogue. That's what I'm saying. That's what needs to happen, is as they go to reach that doorknob, they get that negative cycle of, I'm not ready yet. You're freaking ready. You were ready yesterday.
Yep. It's funny. I actually always say that ready doesn't matter, because ready you'll never come until you're actually doing it.
We're never ready.
No, and you can't. I'll be ready to do this tomorrow. No, you won't, because you're not ready to do it today. Cool, man.
That's right.
Give her anyway. Just give her. And I really enjoy. I really enjoy showing this to people, and when I say enjoy, it's not like I like to see people struggle, but
I like to see people struggle.
What I enjoy is when you get across the point. I always call them aha moments, right? Where you gain a concept rather than just the points of where you need to be.
For sure.
And one of the things that I recently, one of the guys on the mats, he hurt his rib, couldn't come in for a while. I said, show up anyway. Just come to class, man. Like, you can come, you can learn, you can watch, you can still do that stuff.
Lean against the wall.
Lean against whatever. And he came, and he was working, and he was going slow, and I was working with him directly, and we just kind of chilled, and we did it very slow. He made it through about 20 minutes of class and was like, my rib's just not feeling it. I'm going to stop. And he was feeling bad about it. And I'm like, dude, this is a win.
20 minutes better.
20 minutes better than you were yesterday, right? So that's
but you know what the higher level concept on that is?
Well, the higher level concept I was going to go with that was the fact that it's the little work every day. It's not the giant leaps that are actual progress. It is those little things every single day where you say, I am going to go to jiu-jitsu, or
that's right.
I am going to reach forward and grab that door, or
that's right.
am going to, and you just go and do it for however long it takes. Even when you were saying, being in a shrill environment, and you're like, okay, let's see how long I can take. I'm going to do 12 seconds today. Okay. And okay, you need tools. Like, I have my noise canceling headphones on when the kids are playing at a playground. Cool. I've gotten to a point now where I wear them, but then I take them off for a little bit. and then I wear them, and then I take them off for a little bit, and then I wear them, and I take them off for a little bit, because I want to push myself that little extra bit.
It's exposure therapy.
That's it. Exactly. You just show up. You just try, and then see what happens, and then do it again.
That's right.
Over and over and over again.
It is like the Bill Murray Groundhog Day movie. Bill Murray, if you recall, started off in that 24-hour cycle of Groundhog Day where he was a jackass and had very few skills. And through the process, he started gaining more and more skills. And then he started to use those skills to try and game the game to his own advantage in a non-righteous way. And it would backfire on him. And it wasn't until he did all the work to become, we'll call it an awesome dude, that then the outcome authentically and organically became what he had wished for all along the way, without a forced, artificial, created effort. He just became a good dude, period.
Yep.
But it took a lot of work, a lot of 24-hour cycles of trying to better understand how to play that piano or whatever he was doing within the various phases of the movie. And so as he was trying to chase what he believed to be the outcome, he focused purely on driving towards that outcome, but he was missing the actual beautiful part of the aspect, and that was the journey.
Yeah.
Every day is awesome as long as you're not focused on the outcome, but you're moving towards an outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. That is it. Again, little things that build on little things that, skills stack on top of other skills that allow you to do this.
That's right. Yeah.
And just keep going from there. I feel like that feels like a really good spot to finish up this live. I've had a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Any final thoughts before we shut down the inaugural?
No, other than don't delete this because you swore.
I wasn't gonna. I wasn't the only one that swore, though, so just so you know.
I don't know. I don't think I swore. I said ass. Did I say ass? I think.
A couple of times, yep.
Yeah. I don't really consider that to be a swear word. Kick, fall down on your ass.
Yeah.
Kick your ass. It is an ass. I mean, I could say glutamus maximus, or... You
could.
But,
I mean, you do have Irish background. You could use arse, I guess. I don't know.
Kick ass. Kick arse.
It's all good.
It's all good.
We will all be better next time, let me tell you that.
That's right. Well, you will.
All right, well, I appreciate you chatting with me. I think it's turned out quite well, and we'll give her shut her down and have another conversation with other people at another point in time.
That's right. Hey, listen, this is a non-effort sort of scenario now. Easy peasy. With this setup, it's good. And it's just chatting. So what the heck? And if anyone is finally at this point listening right now before it actually does get shut down, go back about 20 minutes and re-listen to it all again. Start freaking kicking your arse.
Well, from myself and everyone else, I guess here at the collective, which isn't actually here because I'm in my basement and you're in your office, but
that's right.
This is it. Thanks everyone for
listening.
Virtually,
we're collecting.
Yeah.
Thanks, pal.
Peace.
I'll see you on the IG.